Hello everybody, let me hurry and turn down the sound. It's a little loud for me here. Okay, awesome. Alright guys, I'm just going to do a quick little video for you here on project number 3. So project number 3, let me hurry and pull that over here. Alright, project number 3 is basically looking at stem plants, or plant stem, sorry, and what you're going to be doing with the plant stem is the following. And I'll pull all of it up. I have it all up on a separate document, but basically what you guys will be doing is looking at the relationship between the stem height and the cross section. Now to get this started, I wanted to quickly go over some key things here. And so when we're looking at this, just so you guys are aware of what, move me right there, very good. So you guys can see how this is. So first of all, you're going to need to gather data on several different plants, total of I think 3, because it'll give you 1. And so you'll do it, get some data from plants. Now this can be any plant you want. So you could do a tree, as long as it's small enough that you can get the height. Okay, you can do a plant. I would try and find some various sizes, all right, because we want to see if there is a relationship between a bigger plant such as a tree and other things. Okay, and so go outside, take a little walk, and get some data. All right, so just so you guys get this information, so stem height, when we're looking at the stem of the plant, we're looking at this main stalk, right? And you guys understand that. And so first of all, you'll need to get the height, and we're going to calculate that from the base all the way up to the top. Okay, and so that's why if you do a tree, make sure it's a smaller tree, maybe, unless you want to do some geometry and stuff like that. Okay. So anyways, go for a little walk, try and find a tree that's not too tall that you can maybe get a measurement from. Okay, and so anyways, get that measurement for the height. The circumference, on the other hand, is one you're definitely going to need, and then these two right here you can actually calculate with the circumference and height. Okay, so the radius and cross section you will not need to gather while you're out there in the field, but you do need to get these two. And the circumference is just taking the plant and you're going to measure around the base of the stem. Okay, so around it. Just so you guys are aware, the radius is obviously half of the diameter. So radius would be from the center out, which it's hard to do. It's not that tree that's growing out there. I do not want you to cut it, okay? And so we're going to measure that using some math. And then the cross section is this right here. And so basically giving us that diameter of what is, how wide is this stem? And this is what we're really looking at. We're looking at, is there a similarity between, or a relationship, sorry, between the height and the cross section right here. Okay. All right. So the first thing I want you guys to do, pause the video, and I want you guys to think about these 4 questions and come up with a hypothesis to these questions. So, for example, you could, but I want you to kind of briefly go through these. You don't need to answer these on a piece of paper, but it will help you formulate that hypothesis. So how would the height of a plant stem relate to its cross-section? Would there be no correlation between the two? Would there be no way to predict how the plant stem's cross-section changes with its height, dependent on each other, stuff like that, okay? How might stem height and cross-section affect a plant stem's functions? So think about those 4 questions as you are coming up with that hypothesis. Pause the video when you have that. Alright, so now you should have that done. So now what I want you guys to do is I want to show you quickly how to do the math here to calculate these different cross sections, and then we can get started. Alright, so first of all, here are several different calculations that you can use. So like I said, what you will need is this right here. And so it actually gives you some experimental data. This is for plant number 1. So you guys need to do 2, 3, and 4. So go outside and get those different plant heights and stuff. Give me a quick description, the height, and the circumference. These 2 right here we will then calculate using these calculations. Alright, so here we go. So first of all, to get the circumference, you'll use this equation. So the circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. And you're like, wait, I don't understand what radius is. Well, we'll need to get that too, okay? And so we'll need to solve for radius using this right here, okay? And so to solve for radius, you'll need your circumference. You'll divide that by 2 pi. All right, so that'll give you your radius, and then you can plug and chug into that. Since you already have your circumference, though, you're good there. And now to get the cross section, you'll plug it into this. So the cross section equals pi r times 2. Yes, times by 2. So it's pi times r times 2. That'll give you the cross section. And then what you guys will be able to do when you have that is then you can start to compare. And so the part of this lab, you will fill this out. One of the labs will be you putting in your data right here. This is a lab that spans the entire unit. So be prepared to do those other parts. So this is the procedure of what you will do there. With the plants, they say to go to a nursery or a home improvement store or whatever. If you want to go to Lowe's and stuff, that'd be a good place. You could get that data too, right? Get out of the house, enjoy yourself. Anyways, and it tells you all that information there. In lesson 14, this is another part of the lab. It's pretty simple, so I'm not going to do a video assignment for that. I just wanted to do this with you so you guys could understand how to solve for radius and cross section using your circumference and height. And so then after you guys are done with that, make sure that you analyze the data. Is there a relationship between the height and the cross section? Now your question could be, well, how do I know? Right? Well, let's look at this. So let me hurry in. I love to use Excel or Google Sheets or whatever because it helps us to really analyze that data. All right. So, for example, let's say that we have. So here's an idea of what you guys could do here. So plant type or number or whatever it is. We're going to look for where only the lab wants us to look at the relationship between height and cross section. If you remember from right here. So why are you examining the relationship between plant? That is what you will do to determine this lab. Okay, so plant height and cross section is kind of like what we're kind of looking for there. And so we would have maybe plant A, B, C, and D. You'll have 4 plants. You would put that description of what they are. Let's say that plant number 1 centimeters, and I'm not going to put the units of measure there, but I will say that this is measured in centimeters there. We want to keep the measurements the same. Okay. Let's say that I have a bigger plant that is 10 centimeters. Let's say I have one that's 100 centimeters. Let's say I have one that is 1,000 centimeters. Well, let's see. What's the cross section point? 0.057. I forgot to put this is squared. Come on. Okay. Centimeters squared. Let me just make sure I just had that right. So it's 0.057 centimeters squared. Okay. Let's say that this one went up to 0.14. Let's say this one went up to 0.30, and this one went to point. Well, sorry, I'm just going to try and do some math to show you what a relationship would or would not work. Here, let me. I'm going to have actually 2 experimental pieces of data here. Okay, And then let's say that this one, I'm fine with that. Let's say this is 1.40. This one turned into... Okay, so let's say that we have this data here, right? And so if I insert and I can put a chart here, I want it to be a line graph. Got it. I want to change this to a line graph. Does it? Chart area, chart style. So just let me customize setup. There we go. On a line graph. Okay, so there's that one. Let's say that I have it based on this. Insert chart. Oh. See the difference here? So here's some data. Obviously this is just messed up, and this one I just made up. I wanted to show a trend. So if there is a trend, such as this, a straight line, or maybe it's a downwards line, okay? But this one we see it actually goes down, up, and then down. There isn't a relationship between, as it gets bigger in height, the cross section should also follow a similar pattern. Maybe not increase, maybe it decreases, but we should see a trend. Okay, so this one right here, I see an increase in trend. I see a relationship as that as height increases, cross section increases as well. Okay, while this one right here, I don't see that trend. There is no relationship in this example between height and cross section. But is there a relationship between the height and the cross section in this one? Yes. Okay, and so using Excel will help you to realize and see that difference in the data, okay, and be able to visualize that there is a relationship. Just by looking at my table right here, I'm like, I don't quite see the relationship, but this right here definitely shows me that there is a relationship there, okay? So use this to your advantage at this data, and what I can do is I'll actually link this document in there so you guys can use this to manipulate if you'd like to kind of see what it can do. And then with your data, you could even plug and chug in, make a copy of this, plug and chug it. Obviously you wouldn't need this one right here, but then you just simply go to this, go to insert chart, and it's going to make a stupid column chart, which I don't want. What I did is just right click on that, go to edit chart style, setup, and I want it to be a line graph for this example. Sometimes bar graphs work. In this example, I want to see a line graph. Okay? All right, you guys. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me.